Welcome to a special episode of the Local Government News Roundup, brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association. I'm your host, Chris Eddy, and today we're tackling a critical issue affecting councils everywhere: burnout and overwhelm. I'm joined by Zoe Dattner, CEO of the Dattner Group, who'll share valuable insights and practical strategies to help local government leaders manage the increasing demands on their teams. Stay tuned for an enlightening discussion that could transform the way you approach your work. On the Local Government News Roundup, it's my pleasure to catch up again with Zoe Dattner, CEO of the Dattner Group. Welcome back to the podcast, Zoe.
Thank you very much for having me, Chris.
Good to have you here again. Last time we spoke, you were in Poland. How was that experience?
It was so fantastic. It was a conference of sustainability leaders and change makers and city planners from all over Europe. It's their big annual event called Urban Future. So it was actually incredibly encouraging because there is a strong and long history of social change. Of course, in Europe, it's an old place from that perspective, and just full of people working their butts off to make really positive change in the places that really need to happen.
What sort of insights, what sort of learnings are you able to bring back to the work that you're doing with the Dattner Group?
I think the biggest thought is, it's a challenge for everybody to have an influence on policy. And, in many parts of Europe, where cities have to constantly renew themselves because they want to protect, certain heritage areas and so on. And so they're always battling the old with the new. How do we keep this and evolve for a future which has got way more people in it than the Middle Ages did, for example? And the main lesson that we keep coming back to, and I ran a session around influencing stakeholders, is that we think and we become locked to the illusion that we are stuck in a system we can't do anything about. And we forget that at the centre of any system are people like you and me, with brains in our heads and hearts in our chests and problems of all humankind. And to remind folks that influencing any kind of outcome is still a human-to-human challenge. So it just reminded me of that we are not locked in systems that we can't necessarily do anything about. We can always do something about it. And that was my biggest takeaway from that.
Okay. Good thought. The reason we're catching up today is you recently held an event for local government people, with local government people, on this issue of busyness, the drive to do more with less, and how that's potentially leading to burnout within councils. What sort of stories did you hear that day?
Well, we do a lot of research on councils all the time through the culture researching processes that we do. So we have a lot of information on quite different councils, different sizes, different parts of Australia. And the reason we chose this topic is because it kept coming up across all levels within organisations about we do too much, we have too much on our plate, we're being asked to do more, whether it's from my team manager or from the community or the councillors. It's coming from everywhere. So what we wanted to do was circle the wagons around this topic and really ask predominantly GMs and CEOs who were invited to the session, what is this like for you? What are you seeing? What are you experiencing? And what do we want to do about it? Because, of course, it impacts us on an individual level. It makes us feel like there's no end to the list of tasks. And then the impact in the organisation can obviously be quite corrosive, both in terms of how we retain good people and then just our ability to be effective with our strategic goals. So it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The busyness puts pressure on systems that can't sustain it. We say yes to absolutely everything and end up, not necessarily achieving the level of quality or achievement that we need to.
People more and more are recognising that this overwhelm, as you call it, I hadn't thought of it as a noun before, but the overwhelm is a growing risk. What is the risk with this, do you see, beyond the obvious stress and burnout?
The risk, ultimately, I think, as far as a council or a local government organisation is concerned, is that things are just not going to be achieved in the way that we want to, that when it comes to infrastructural maintenance or any kind of community development, where there's so much pressure on an organisation from the community and from councillors to do X, Y, and Z so quickly, something else doesn't get done in the meantime. Something just gets dropped. There's also a physical and mental safety, very real physical and mental safety risks associated with piling layer upon layer upon layer of stuff. And then the sustainability of the organisation itself. It just can't do that forever. It can do it for a certain amount of time, and then it'll just break down.
Yeah, so a diminishing impact, a sacrifice of strategic thinking, that's something that would fall by the wayside from what you've described, I would imagine.
And in some cases, an inability to come up with that strategic thinking at all, because when new people come into an organisation, into a culture, they're entering moving traffic, as it were. So even if you've come from a previous council or organisation where leaders had a really good grasp on that kind of stuff, you very quickly have to assimilate whether that's what you're doing or not. So in what can often be quite conventional cultures in government, it's not a surprise, they're bureaucracies. You have people going along to get along. So the opportunity to challenge a lot of this stuff decreases as soon as you enter that stream. So the opportunity to achieve any of those innovation measures that a lot of councils want to do and simply can't, the ability to continue to bring people in and influence the culture becomes tougher and tougher. So it really is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And what happens is that we tend to protect ourselves, just get on with the business of doing, because it's just too tough.
You've put together a document with some findings, if you like, some takeaways from the event that you had, which I'll get to in a moment as to who was there. But one thing that jumped out at me, Zoe, was that only 18% of leaders in your survey actually believe that their behaviour has an impact on psychological safety. Do you think that's an accurate number, or is that in itself a problem that only 18% of people actually see that as an impact of their own behaviour?
I think it definitely is. It comes from the idea that, the higher up you are in an organisation, the less likely you are to hear the truth. And I think that's particularly interesting in councils, because you often have people ascending through the ranks and then attaining directorship levels or things like that. And at that point, they stop hearing the truth from their people. So they may feel within their own leadership team at the exec level or the senior management level, things are great. We have really constructive, collaborative conversations. We trust one another, but they're in a little bit of a bubble. So they just simply don't know. They can't see what the impact of their own leadership is on the rest of the organisation.
So it's a blind spot.
Exactly.
In effect, yeah.
Yep.
So who did you have at the event sharing their stories?
We had Craig Swift McNair, the GM from Willara Council in Sydney. We had Will, I have to edit this bit Will Jeremy, the CEO at Alpine Shire Council. And then we had a senior researcher, Abby Hunt, from Data Drives Insight. She's a psychologist and senior researcher into psychological safety and has a lot of data, particularly on councils.
So why were those particular people chosen for this topic?
Craig was an easy one. In fact, he was one of the reasons why we came up with this topic, because we asked him for some feedback on something a few months ago. I can't remember what it was. It was just hey, Craig, what are your thoughts on X, Y, and Z? And he responded within minutes in a scary, speedy amount of time. And we already knew he was a super busy man. It's a very busy council under really big demands. And I thought, my goodness, what is this man doing? Is he okay? Does he need a cup of tea? And I thought that responsiveness is quite intense. And that, the flip side of that is it can take a long time to hear back from people. And it's a symptom of the same thing. It's just that hyper-reactiveness. And we knew that Craig had some really smart and humanistic perspectives on that as well. Like anyone who leads a council, he really cares about his people. He cares about the community. And he's got a high value around responsiveness, as many councils do. Now, responsiveness can convert pretty quickly to reactiveness when the pressure's on. So we thought that was an interesting talking point. Will Jeremy from Alpine Shire Council was there because they're in the middle of a culture transformation process that we're helping them with. And they have had a similar thing around the exec team or senior leaders in particular. They say our door's always open, but they're never in the room, as it were. So you can't walk through the door because they're so busy. They're out there all the time. And Will shared a fabulous story that really hit the mark, that he and his senior leaders are physically slowing down when they walk through the office now. So they're not like bam, 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 not rushing from one thing to another. They're physically slowing down, and apparently it's having an impact. People are noticing it and saying, hey, it's so nice to actually see you guys move at a normal human pace through the office. And we can even say good day to one another. And then Abby had some great data around the psychosocial risks within councils and how that's impacting leaders in those organisations.
So some simple things that can be done. And I know in the document you've provided some tips and tricks, if we can call it that. Sure. What's this idea of saying no once a week?
Well, the idea comes down to, and this is an idea we want to tease apart even more, how do you say no to optimize yes? So when we are really clear on the most important things, it's easier to say no to other things. And you do so because we're aligned, and you do so with generosity and, sympathy for whatever those other things might be. So it starts with small habits. And if there's it can take any form, whether it's your weekly team meeting where you have a no agenda item and everyone says, here's the thing I'm going to say no to this week. And it simply becomes a language sort of habit as much as anything else. There's a wonderful idea that the words we use become the house we live in. And we use language so much now in this very speedy, hasty way. I've just got to dash to the toilet. I've just got to rush off this email. We use that kind of language all the time. So we really need to retrain our brains to slow everything down. And so that's just one suggestion. Have some mechanism for you and your team to literally say no once a week. Or there was another council there, it was Glen Innes, I believe, practicing no meeting Fridays. They're not having meetings on Fridays. That's just a rule they're making. You can try it for a couple of months and see how it goes.
I guess the danger there is if you do it in the wrong way, you might perpetuate the problem or send the wrong message, isn't it?
Well, this is the value and gold of sharing something across an organisation so that everybody understands it and everybody knows. And everyone can help hold one another to account then, because you're saying, this is why we're doing it. Here are the costs and implications if we don't. Here are the kinds of things that you're likely to see as evidence of us trying some of these new things, and to keep that communication going all of the time. So I know one of the things Craig at Wallara does, they have a really great newsletter that goes out to their team. Everybody has talked about how good his newsletter is, and that's the kind of forum where he'll let everyone know, I'm slowing down. Here's what you can do if you can see me speeding up. Help me be a leader on this. So it's really about sharing it and, making it a meme in your own organisation.
Yeah. So your document talks about 91% of overloaded individuals don't ask for help because they likely don't feel safe to. That example you've just provided coming from the top, I guess, is a very important step to model the right way to go about that.
Yeah, 100%. And because when people come into an organisation and they see everybody else running around like crazy, they think, this is what culture is, they think the expectation here is that we have to run around like crazy and get as much done as we can. We work till 8 o'clock at night. We get here really early. We have 10-minute lunch breaks. These are all the things that set an expectations. This is, to your earlier question around leaders not understanding the impact of their own behaviour. The thing is, and Abby said this with the data that she revealed, people can work really long hours, doesn't necessarily impact their happiness. Some of them are super satisfied. They're so purposeful and engaged in their work that they're happy to do that. That's fine. As a leader, if you've got the resilience and the resources to be able to do that, that's fine. But the message it sends can be quite damaging.
Yeah. Another tool that jumped out at me from the document, the 3-lens filter for new work, which appears to be a practical tool, but I wonder how councils can go about embedding such a method into their daily operations.
So the context of the 3-lens filter comes in context. So what that means is that when we think about leadership, we think about ourselves and what we can do within ourselves. We think about our teams, what we can do within, the relationships of people right in front of us. The 3-lens filter really applies to context. It's the bigger picture. It's when you zoom out and see yourself as if from afar. So that's the point at which, whether you're in a meeting with your counsellors or it's a community consult or whatever it might be, that you lead and facilitate a conversation using whatever mechanisms make sense to ask those 3 questions. Is it aligned with our strategic direction? So someone says, how about those new basketball courts or whatever? Is it aligned with our strategic direction? Is the thing you're asking about relevant right now? Or can it wait? And the third one is it ours or should we push it back? That is this our problem to solve or does it really belong in another domain? And if as a leader we really lead those questions more, then we help everybody to share what the thing is and also jolt them out of their own busyness and franticness, because everybody's doing this everywhere.
So you've distilled all of this really useful information, these tools and tips into a very handy PDF document. I'm assuming that's available for anyone who'd like to access it.
Yep, absolutely. You can go to our website, dattnergroup.com.au/resources, and you'll see it there as a downloadable document.
Excellent. It's called Do Your People Feel Overwhelmed and Close to Burnout? Another excellent event by the sounds of it. Zoe, what have you got coming up next for local government?
Oh gosh, we've got something quite exciting, which is in its early days, but it'll happen, because what we want to do as an an antidote to this is help councils understand how to celebrate. And we're not very good at that. We're not very good at in Australia celebrating our achievements. So in time for Christmas, around October, we're going to have an event that helps you understand how to celebrate.
Excellent. I look forward to hearing more about that. Terrific.
Yeah, no worries.
Zoe, great to chat as always. Thank you for that. Thank you for the insights that you're giving to the sector. I hope many, many people working in local government can take advantage of that. All the best.
Thank you, Chris.
And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Local Government News Roundup, brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association. I hope Zoe Dattner's insights have provided you with some new perspectives and tools to address burnout and overwhelm in your organisation. Don't forget to check out the resources mentioned in today's episode. You'll find the link in the show notes. And stay tuned for more engaging discussions in the future. The Local Government News Roundup is recorded in the city of Greater Geelong, Victoria, on the land of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. Until next time, thanks for listening and bye for now. The VLGA is offering a special Councillor Professional Development Intensive series. Partner with 3 other councils and save more than 50% off the minimum cost of completing all 13 modules in Year 1. The intensives will be held over 3 days. They're cost-effective, time-efficient and promote the benefits of peer-to-peer and face-to-face learning. In addition to the intensives and in recognition that every council has different needs, the VLGA also offers bespoke training options, both online and in person. A faculty of facilitators will work with you to customise a program that responds directly to the unique professional development needs of your council. To find out more, head to www.vlga.org.au.